The sun spilled like gold through cathedral windows, as guests in silk and diamonds turned their heads in awe. Billionaire Adam Lockhart stood at the altar, his tailored white suit pristine, his posture sharp, commanding. Beside him, Serena Vale, heiress to a global real estate empire, shimmered in a gown of pearls and French lace, her lips poised to speak vows she'd rehearsed since girlhood. The orchestra swelled with violins, and the priest lifted the ceremonial book. But before Serena could speak, the towering doors of the chapel slammed open with a thunderous echo that drowned the music. A girl, maybe 10 or 11, stood in the entryway, her shoes muddy, her coat oversized. "Stop the wedding!" she shouted, her voice cracking with fear and fire. Gasps rippled like a wave across the pews. Cameras froze. Serena's eyes narrowed in disbelief. The girl stepped forward. "He can't marry her," she said. "That man is my father." Adam's face drained of color. Silence thundered louder than applause ever could. A dozen security guards stood frozen at the back of the cathedral, uncertain whether to intervene. The girl's voice rang with such certainty it unsettled even the most hardened among them. "You left my mom with nothing," she said. "You gave her lies, but I have proof." Adam's lips barely parted. His mind reeled with the impossibility. How had this secret surfaced? Who let her in? The priest lowered the ceremonial book. Serena took a step back. "What is she talking about?" she asked, her voice now sharp. The guests began whispering furiously. One woman, in a sapphire gown, muttered, "Is that the janitor's girl?" Another gasped, "He had an affair?" The flower girl clutched her petals, confused and scared. The air turned heavy, the music long silenced. "I'm not here to ruin your day," the girl added. "I'm here so he doesn't ruin mine again." Adam's jaw clenched. For the first time in his life, the titan of finance had no words. Flashbulbs snapped as reporters at the back began filming the surreal moment. Serena hissed, "Is this true, Adam?" Her fingers tightened around the bouquet. Adam couldn't answer. He hadn't seen that face in years, but there was no mistaking her mother's eyes in the girl's face. "This is not the time or place," he muttered finally. But the girl wouldn't move. "It's the only time you listen." Murmurs turned to outrage. Someone shouted, "We deserve to know." Serena's father stood, livid. "Is this why the prenup changed?" Adam raised his hand, trying to calm the chaos. "Enough," he roared. But it was too late. The illusion was shattered. In 6 words, the girl had cracked his empire. He stared into her face and saw a truth he had buried a decade ago come to claim its vengeance. Outside, limousines idled while gossip spilled like oil through phone screens and live feeds. Inside, Serena's mother approached her daughter, whispering harshly, "You must leave now." Serena refused. "Not until I get the truth." The girl stepped closer, now face to face with Adam. "She told me you'd deny it," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But she said I had to try." Adam turned away. "Security," he said coldly. But none of them moved. Their eyes too betrayed doubt. This wasn't a protester. This was something deeper, something buried. The girl held out a wrinkled letter. "She wrote this before she died," she whispered. "She wanted you to see it." Her fingers trembled. The silence returned, heavier than before. Adam stared at the letter but didn't take it. His fingers twitched, jaw locked. Serena's veil drifted slightly as she stepped away from him, no longer the blushing bride but a woman standing on the edge of betrayal. "You knew," she said softly. "All this time." Adam turned, whispering, "I never wanted this." The girl stared at him. "You left us in a hallway, Mr. Lockhart. Not even a goodbye." He looked at the guests. No allies remained. Every eye pierced like knives. Even the priest had lowered his gaze. Adam took the letter slowly, hands trembling. "She died 2 weeks ago," the girl added. "I buried her without you." Her voice cracked. The billionaire's hands clutched the page, but the ink bled more than truth. It bled guilt, and finally tears. The girl's voice still echoed through the grand cathedral as they ushered her into a side chamber. A lawyer tried to intervene, but she clutched a file to her chest with fierce defiance. Adam sat across from her, Serena pacing behind him like a caged lioness. "Who are you?" Serena demanded. "Why now?" The girl stared at Adam. "You knew my mom, Tanya Mendoza. You hired her as a janitor at your downtown office. You fired her when she got pregnant." Adam's knuckles whitened. "That's not true," he muttered. "She never told me." The girl opened the file. Photos, letters, pay stubs, all with your name. Serena froze, eyes scanning the documents. "Adam," she whispered. "Tell me she's lying." But the billionaire couldn't speak. He knew the handwriting. He remembered the scent of cleaning chemicals and jasmine. Maybe a memory he'd buried was now clawing its way back through the silence. The folder sat open now, its contents spread like forgotten sins. Adam rubbed his temples as Serena stood frozen, her veil removed, face pale. "I didn't know," Adam said. "She never told me." The girl interrupted. "She tried, but your assistant blocked her every time." She pulled out a folded letter, addressed in trembling cursive. "She wrote this after I was born. You never answered." Serena read it silently. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. "Why would she lie?" The girl stepped forward. "Because she didn't want your money. She just wanted me to know who my father was." Her voice cracked, but she held her ground. Adam's voice dropped. "You're saying I have a daughter?" The girl met his eyes. "You did. But you gave her away before she ever had a chance." News had already leaked. Outside, cameras flashed and reporters scrambled for statements. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Serena's father stormed into the room, red-faced and furious. "This is a scandal, Adam. Do you have any idea what this does to our family name?" Serena turned sharply. "You knew about this?" He stammered. I heard rumors years ago, but I thought they were handled." The girl raised her voice. "I'm not a scandal. I'm a person. You can't erase me." The tension snapped like a wire. Serena whispered, "This wedding, it can't go on." Adam looked at her. "You believe her?" Serena replied, "I believe you didn't tell me." The girl held up a torn photograph. Adam and Tanya smiling, arms around each other, years younger. The past had become undeniable. They moved to a private lounge as chaos raged outside. Adam sat in a leather chair, head bowed, the girl across from him, letter still in hand. "What happened to your mother?" he asked quietly. She looked down. "She died 2 weeks ago, lung cancer. She worked 3 jobs, never remarried." Adam's eyes welled. "She never told me, not once." The girl replied, "You didn't want to hear her." Serena stood in the doorway. "If this is true, if she was loyal to the end, why did you leave her?" Adam didn't answer. He stared at the fireplace, memory flickering like flame. "I thought she deserved better than what I was," he said. The girl whispered, "She deserved the truth." And for once, Adam Lockhart had no empire to hide behind, only the reflection of who he used to be. Serena walked out quietly, her footsteps soft but final. In her silence was the collapse of a dream. The girl stood unsure. Adam finally rose. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya," she replied. "Maya Mendoza." He repeated it like a confession. "Maya." She nodded. "You're not on my birth certificate. She didn't want your name. She just wanted me to grow up proud." Adam swallowed the weight of those words. Outside, a storm rolled in, thunder echoing across the sky like judgment. Maya turned to leave. "I didn't come to destroy you," she said. "I came so you could know the truth before it's too late." He reached out but didn't touch her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. But apologies couldn't rewrite a childhood lost. She walked out into the rain alone. The mansion's study was silent but restless. Adam stood before the fireplace, his reflection flickering in the glass of a 20-year-old bourbon. I need to know if she's telling the truth, he said. Across from him sat Mitchell Crane, his private investigator, mid-50s, ex-military, discreet and cold. You don't hire me if you want comfort, Mitchell said. You hire me when you want proof. Adam nodded. Then dig deep. Hours later, Mitchell was flipping through surveillance logs, payroll archives, and digital records. His fingers paused on a security file, dated 11 years back. Tanya Mendoza, janitorial staff, call. Last pay stub marked voluntary resignation, but a note flagged it, escorted off premises. Mitchell's brow furrowed. That wasn't voluntary. He tapped deeper. Phone calls. Voicemails. A memo sent from Adam's assistant to HR. Handle this quietly. The girl's claims weren't just possible. They were buried beneath silence. Mitchell leaned back, reading through old emails between Adam's former assistant and building security. She came to the office 5 times, he muttered. Each time denied. The surveillance still showed Tanya at the front desk, her eyes tired but hopeful. Adam stared at the image. I don't remember that, Mitchell said. You wouldn't. She wasn't the story, you were. Another document revealed a non-disclosure agreement, signed under duress. She was silenced, Mitchell said. Paid off, but not enough to stay quiet forever. Adam whispered. She must have hated me. Mitchell replied. She loved you. That's why it took her so long to break. The image of Tanya clutching her stomach, pregnant and alone, burned in Adam's mind. He'd convinced himself she had moved on. But she had been fighting the whole time, and no one listened. Meanwhile, Maya stood outside the graveyard, fingers curled around the iron gate. She looked small beneath the weeping sky. Her mother's grave sat unmarked. No headstone, just a wilted bouquet. I told him, she whispered. I said your name. An older woman approached, soft-footed. It was Maria, Tanya's closest friend. She never stopped waiting, Maria said. Every birthday, she left a letter at your father's office, but none were ever accepted. Maya's eyes filled with rain and tears. He didn't want me. Maria knelt beside her. He never looked. That's different. Maya pulled a folded paper from her coat, a drawing she made for her mother. Do you think she'd be proud of me? She asked. Maria nodded. You did what she never could. You made him listen. The graveyard held only silence and truth. Back in the mansion, Adam opened an old safe behind a painting. Inside, dust-covered files, photographs and journals from a time he thought forgotten. He pulled out a small photo, him and Tanya on a company retreat, laughing by a fountain. Her arm wrapped around him like she belonged. Beneath it, a letter he never remembered reading. To Adam, it began, if you're reading this, I've stopped waiting. His hands trembled. She hadn't wanted revenge. She wanted memory. He placed the letter on the desk beside a silver pen. And for the first time in years he sat down, not as a billionaire, not as a groom, but as a man who failed someone who once believed in him. You were right, he said aloud to the empty room. She was mine, and I let her go. That night, Serena stood alone in her penthouse suite, the wedding dress draped over a chair like a forgotten relic. Her mother paced, furious. You're ending everything for some girl. Serena replied, I'm ending it because he lied. She stared out the window. And because I don't want to be next. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya.I. Just one sentence. Thank you for not yelling at me. Serena replied, I was a child once too. She poured herself a drink and dropped her engagement ring inside the glass. The clink echoed louder than the storm outside. Her mother warned, without him, you're on your own. Serena turned slowly. No, I'm finally just myself. She didn't need a headline. She needed peace. And this storm, she would walk through it alone if she had to. The wedding venue had emptied, but headlines filled the void. Billionaire love child bombshell blazed across morning news tickers. Helicopters hovered over Lockhart Estates. Serena's absence didn't go unnoticed. Neither did the silence from Adam's PR team. Inside his corporate boardroom, a storm brewed worse than the wedding. "Our stocks dipped 12%, barked Harold Dupont, CFO. "This girl's story is trending globally." Adam stood, shoulders heavy, staring out the window. "No more statements," he said. "We fix this internally." But the board wasn't listening. "You lied to investors," another said. "You lied to all of us." Adam turned, fire creeping into his tone. "I didn't lie. I buried a mistake," Harold snapped. "And now it's unearthing your legacy." The board demanded a vote. But for the first time in decades, Adam had no defense, only the weight of a truth no empire could silence. At a small media outlet, Maya sat nervously across from a young journalist named Zoe Tran. "You sure you want this on record?" Zoe asked gently. Maya nodded. She wanted her story heard. "I'm just finishing what she started." She pulled out a worn envelope. Inside, Tanya's last letter, photos and hospital bills unpaid. "He promised her help," Maya whispered. "And left her instead." Zoe looked stunned. "Did she ever sue?" Maya shook her head. She didn't want to fight a billionaire. She just wanted him to call. Zoe leaned forward. "You're about to destroy him." Maya's hands trembled. "I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm trying to stop hiding." The recorder clicked on. The interview had begun. And for the first time, Maya's voice would be heard beyond the chapel walls, unfiltered and unforgettable. The interview went viral within hours. Hashtags flooded timelines. Support poured in from single mothers, children of absentee parents, and strangers who saw themselves in Maya's pain. In the mansion, Adam stared at the screen, watching her speak. "He wasn't a monster," Maya said. "He was just too scared to be a father." Adam paused the video. Across the room, Mitchell entered quietly. "The will," he said, handing over an envelope. "Tanya's last one." Adam opened it, his fingers trembling. It read, "To Maya, everything. To Adam, the chance to make it right." Attached was the DNA test, never filed. Adam sank into the chair, hollowed by guilt. The truth had been waiting all along. He just never opened the right door. Outside Lockhart Enterprises HQ, protesters gathered. Signs read, "Tell the truth, fathers don't vanish. We believe Maya." Cameras swarmed. Adam emerged through the doors, no security in tow. He faced the crowd and the storm of judgment. "I failed her," he said, voice steady but grave. "I failed them both." Reporters screamed questions. Adam didn't flinch. "This is not a press conference. This is a reckoning. There's no speech that can rewrite what I abandoned. But from today forward, I will not hide." A silence rippled through the chaos. Somewhere in the crowd, a child clapped. Then another. Adam looked upward, not for redemption but for resolve. The empire didn't fall in a day. But today, he began dismantling it himself. Far from the cameras, Maya sat on a park bench, clutching the same letter she'd carried since the chapel. A man approached quietly and sat beside her. "I saw," she said, not looking. "Good," Adam replied. "I meant it." Maya kept her eyes forward. "You're not forgiven." "Not yet." Adam nodded. "I know." A pause. "But I'd like to learn how to earn it." Maya pulled out a second copy of the will. "She gave you a second chance. Don't waste it." He took it slowly. "Do you think she'd be proud?" Maya finally turned to look at him. "She'd be furious it took this long. But yes, she would." They sat in silence. Two strangers, bound by blood and regret, letting the late afternoon sun wrap around them like a slow apology. The boardroom no longer belonged to Adam Lockhart. He walked into the emergency shareholders meeting and found his portrait already gone. In its place, a digital slideshow of falling stock prices. "You've become a liability," said Harold. The press won't stop. Adam sat slowly. You're right. And I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to step down. Gasps filled the room. Effective immediately, I resign as CEO, and I'll divest majority shares to the Lockhart Foundation under my daughter's name. Silence. Then chaos. You're giving control to a child. Adam replied, No, I'm giving it to the truth, something this company's never been good at. The board voted, but it didn't matter. Adam had already signed the papers. When he left that room, he left the empire that once made him untouchable, and chose to be accountable instead. Maya stood in the lobby of Lockhart Enterprises, dwarfed by the height of marble columns and the glare of news cameras. But her steps were steady. She walked with Maria at her side and the foundation's new attorney, a woman who once worked with Tanya. The press surrounded them, questions flying like daggers. How does it feel? Are you the new heir? What will you do with the power? Maya said nothing. She entered the elevator, heart thundering. On the top floor, a new plaque waited, the Tanya Mendoza Children's Justice Initiative. Maya reached out, fingers tracing her mother's name. She built this, she whispered. Not him. Maria smiled. Now the world knows. For the first time, Maya stood tall, not as the janitor's daughter, but as her mother's legacy in flesh and fire. That evening, Serena returned to the chapel, not for a wedding, but for closure. She walked alone down the aisle, past empty chairs and forgotten petals. Her footsteps echoed louder than music. At the altar, she looked up, tears in her eyes. I almost gave you forever, she whispered into the silence. Then she reached into her purse and placed a letter there, sealed, addressed to Adam. Inside, her words were sharp but honest. You broke us the moment you broke her. And I won't be a woman who inherits silence. She lit a single candle and left it on the altar. As she exited, the chapel remained quiet. No scandal, no headlines. Just a woman who refused to carry someone else's shame. Later that night, Adam visited the janitor's old locker room at the downtown office, untouched since Tanya's death. It smelled of bleach and steel. A faded uniform still hung on a hook. He found her locker number and opened it slowly. Inside, a diary, brittle from age. Pages filled with notes, drawings, letters unsent. One entry read, He never came, but I still wait. Adam pressed it to his chest, his eyes closing. For the first time in his life, he cried, not for reputation but for what he'd lost without even knowing. He sat on the cold bench, alone in silence, as the echo of her memory filled the room. Forgiveness hadn't come, but he had finally come to her. Maya sat alone in her room that night, legs curled beneath her as she looked through the letters Tanya had saved. Each one addressed to Adam. Each one returned unopened. She whispered to herself, You waited, now I don't have to. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a framed photo. Her mother holding baby Maya, eyes full of exhausted love. I found him, Maya said aloud. But I found you too. She placed the frame beside her bed and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page she wrote, Day 1, truth lives here now. And outside, the world still raged. But inside, Maya Mendoza had peace. A peace her mother never had. A beginning, not born of lies, but of light. A week later, headlines began to change tone. Billionaire steps down for daughter. From scandal to justice. But inside the mansion, silence remained. Adam hadn't touched the piano in days. He wandered room to room like a ghost, unsure if he belonged in any of them. He stood before Tanya's old photo, now framed in silver on his mantel. I never gave you flowers, he whispered. Only reasons to disappear. His phone vibrated. An alert from the foundation's account. Donations were pouring in. Thousands of people had written about growing up unseen. He opened one email. A woman wrote, Because Maya spoke, I told my daughter who her father was. Adam closed his eyes. Tanya's silence had created a ripple. Maya's voice had made it roar. For the first time, he understood. Redemption wasn't declared. It was earned, quietly, painfully, step by step. Maya walked the halls of her new school. Whispers trailed her, curiosity, envy, awe. But she didn't flinch. She wore her mother's necklace now, tucked under her blouse like a shield. During lunch, she sat alone until a small girl approached. "Are you the girl from the news?" Maya nodded. "You're brave," the girl said. Maya offered a small smile. "No, I was scared. I just stopped hiding." More kids joined the table. She wasn't alone anymore. At home, she showed Maria a letter from the mayor's office. Maya had been nominated for a city youth award. She would have laughed, Maya said. She hated politics. Maria smiled. She would have cried first. Maya folded the letter gently and slipped it into her backpack. Not for the headlines. For her mother. Serena sat at a coffee shop by the marina, far from tabloids and headlines. She had returned to her maiden name. No more press statements. No more deals behind veils. A young woman approached, Zoe the journalist. "Your letter meant something," Zoe said. "Women are quoting it in rallies." Serena looked surprised. "It was just truth. I was tired of editing myself." Zoe handed her a notebook. "Would you consider writing?" Serena hesitated. "A memoir." Zoe laughed. "Not about him, about you." Serena looked out at the boats. "Maybe it's time I write the ending myself." She signed the first page quietly. Zale. The sea behind her shimmered like new chapters waiting to be read. Mitchell Crane, the investigator, visited the hospital where Tanya once worked part-time. He handed the head nurse a thick envelope. "For her daughter," he said. Inside were unpaid medical bills, with everyone stamped, paid in full. He walked the halls slowly, nodding at staff. "She always said you were the quiet one," said a nurse. Mitchell chuckled. "I listened. That's all." He passed a faded photo on the wall, Tanya in scrubs, smiling beside a group of tired nurses. He reached out and tapped the frame. "She deserved more," he whispered. Then he stepped into the elevator and disappeared into the world outside. Some debts weren't legal. They were human. And this one had finally been paid. In the heart of the city, the Lockhart Foundation opened its doors for the first time. Crowds gathered under the archway bearing Tanya's name. Neon. Maya stood beside Adam, a ribbon in her hand. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Do you think she'd like it?" Adam looked up at the banner. "Justice. Dignity. Truth. Thigel." "She'd be furious there had to be one," he said. "But proud it has your name on it." Cameras flashed. Maya cut the ribbon. The crowd clapped. And for the first time, Tanya Mendoza's name stood above a door, not beside a mop. Maya turned to the crowd. "This is not about me," she said. "It's about every kid who was told to stay silent. I'm here to tell you, your story matters." The world listened. 3 months later, autumn leaves danced through the courtyard of the Lockhart Foundation. Adam sat at a stone bench beneath a towering oak, a folder in hand. Maya arrived with a worn backpack and cautious eyes. "You called me," she said. "You didn't have to come," he replied. She sat beside him anyway. He handed her the folder. "It's everything you missed, birth certificate, medical records, even letters I found hidden in my old files." Maya flipped through them. Each page was a piece of a life never lived together. "Why now?" she asked. Adam said softly, "Because I stopped being afraid." She studied him for a moment, then offered a quiet, "Thanks." They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They simply shared a silence full of weight. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a bridge. That weekend, Serena appeared at a small bookshop in the city for a public reading. The place was packed. Her memoir, The Vow Unspoken, had already reached bestseller lists. She stepped onto the platform, a simple mic before her. "This isn't a revenge story," she began. It's a resurrection. She read a passage about finding her voice after losing everything. In the crowd, Zoe watched with pride. Serena closed the book, her voice steady. When truth finds you, you can't outrun it, so you might as well let it rewrite you. The applause was thunderous. Outside, someone spray-painted over an old billboard of her wedding photo with Adam. Over it, someone wrote, "She chose herself." The old bride was gone. The woman standing now had written her own ending. Maria stood in her quiet apartment, placing a new frame on her shelf. Maya and Tanya, smiling side by side in a digitally restored photo. She lit a candle beside it. "You were never invisible," she whispered. On the table sat dozens of handwritten thank you letters from kids who had benefited from the foundation already. She opened one and read aloud. "Because of Maya, I told my mom I wanted help, and she listened." Maria smiled through tears. Tanya's voice was gone, but its echo lived in every girl who dared speak. Every child who stopped hiding. She looked out the window at the city skyline, painted in orange twilight. "She turned your silence into their anthem," she whispered. And somewhere far off, it felt like Tanya was finally home. Mitchell Crane stood in a quiet courtroom, testifying for a woman fighting for custody of her son. "I've seen what silence costs," he told the judge. "It's time we listen better." Later, he exited through marble halls, pausing by a bulletin board. On it was a flyer, Justice Initiative Legal Aid, sponsored by the Tanya Mendoza Foundation. He smiled faintly and walked on. Justice no longer lived in wealth or power, but in action, in truth. Outside, he paused at a park bench. Maya sat there reading. She looked up, surprised. "You helped her," she said. Mitchell nodded. "She helped me too." For a second, neither moved. Then she handed him a page from her journal. "You don't need a badge to protect someone. Just a heart." Mitchell tucked it into his coat and walked off, lighter than he arrived. In the garden Tanya once tended behind the old janitor's apartment, Adam and Maya stood side by side. The weeds were gone. Roses bloomed again. "She used to talk to the flowers," Maya said. "Like they understood pain." Adam knelt, planting a new rose bush. "Then let's give them something to celebrate." They worked silently, father and daughter, no instructions, just rhythm. When the sun began to set, Maya placed a small marker near the roots. "Tanya," she gave more than she had. Adam placed his hand over it, reverent. "You built this," he said. "I just finally showed up." Maya didn't reply. She didn't need to. The garden didn't need silence broken. It needed presence. And for once, Adam Lockhart stayed. Not as a billionaire, not as a ghost, but as a father, planting peace in borrowed soil.